The Detroit Pistons season has been over, but there's stuff going on right now as the playoffs go on that is going to be extremely impactful for the Detroit Pistons this offseason and moving forward. We'll break down what that is in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store and Google Play. Later on in the podcast, we'll talk about whether the Pistons should be worried, or Pistons fans, the org, whatever, should be worried about potential coaches being hired. Coaches that are being interviewed now, and maybe there won't be available by the time the Pistons get their president of basketball operations if they do decide to move on from Monty Williams. Also later on, an all-star game, NBA all-star game, NBA all-star weekend in Detroit. We'll talk about that as well. But like I said in the cold open, the Detroit Pistons season has been done now for a few weeks. And I know a lot of people lose interest at that point, obviously. The season's not going on. They're not playing any games. What is there to care about? Outside the president of basketball operations news of firing of Troy Weaver and Monty Williams, like what is there to worry about at this point? Well, I tell you, what's going on right now is actually incredibly important for the Pistons moving forward. So the first round of the playoffs is going on. And depending on how this first round goes, this may open up a lot of things for the Detroit Pistons. As you guys have known, over the last 2 years or so, I've come on the podcast and I've said that it seems like Troy Weaver and the Detroit Pistons plan, that what they've put all their eggs of all the eggs they got, what basket they've put that in is the basket of there's going to be a team that wants to blow it up. There's going to be a team up against the luxury tax. There's going to be a team in the second apron. There's going to be a team along those lines that needs to get rid of a contract, needs to get rid of a really good player, and the Pistons have positioned themselves to be in a position to take on that player. They have just about $60 million in cap space. They can just absorb a contract without having to give much back. It basically would be like for the team giving up that contract, getting rid of that salary completely, by trading with the Detroit Pistons, which frees up your cap space, frees up some flexibility for yourself. If that's the motivation for a team dealing with the Detroit Pistons. And obviously so far that just has not opened up. That situation has not actually become available for the Detroit Pistons. I know last offseason, a lot of Pistons fans thought, the Timberwolves are going to be bad. They're not going to work with that little trio they got. Maybe Cat becomes available, and that's not going to happen. Like a guy like Cat, he's off the market. He's not going to be getting traded. However, with the way this first round's going, there could be some things that open up for the Detroit Pistons. And I mean in quite a few directions here. And it could change a lot of things for the Pistons this offseason and moving forward. Let's start in the West. You got the 1-8 matchup with the Thunder and Pelicans. You may be thinking, well, what is there so important about that matchup? The Thunder are going to sweep them. The Thunder are definitely going to the second round. Yeah, the Thunder aren't going to be trading anybody, but the New Orleans Pelicans have a player on their team that they're probably going to have to make a decision on this offseason. Actually, not probably. They are going to have to make a decision on this offseason, and that is all-star forward Brandon Ingram. They played better, arguably, without Brandon Ingram. With him and Zion on the floor, they have not been as well. If you follow Pelicans Twitter, you follow some people that cover the Pelicans, Zion and Brandon Ingram on the floor has not been as great as everyone expected. And it's clear the Pelicans are building around Zion. And this offseason, the Pelicans are going to have a decision. Do they want to give Brandon Ingram that extension? Well, will they decide to trade him instead of giving him that money with how this playoffs has went? How he's looked in the playoffs? How they looked once he came back? I think he's going to be tradable. I think he's going to be available, especially for possibly a top pick in this draft and another young piece. Brandon Ingram might be on the move. Could he become a Detroit Piston? It's possible. The Los Angeles Clippers, Dallas Mavericks series. I think we don't know which way that's going to go, but I have to assume one of those teams, whatever team of those is losing, it's going to be over. Like something's going to have to happen. If the Clippers lose, Is it possible Paul George gets on the move? If the Mavericks lose, are they going to be looking to make crazy moves? Because even with the moves they made at the deadline, getting Kyrie, they still lose in the first round. Do they do that? Do they try to get off some contracts? Do they try and create some flexibility for themselves moving forward? Again, entering in that second apron, I don't know the exact rules on it. We'll get a cap expert on here, but I know quite a few. And when you're in that second apron, you can't aggregate contracts, which means if you want to make a trade, you can't put contracts together. You can't trade two guys for one. You can only do 1 for 3s, 1 for 2s, 1 for 4s. So it makes it really hard to make any moves. Also, it's like double the I don't know if it's exactly double, but like how much you actually are paying is not actually what you're paying. You're paying like 25% more or something. Like, people don't want to be paying that for teams that are being bounced in the first round. A team like the Clippers is in that second apron. A team like the Dallas Mavericks are going in that deep in that luxury tax. They might have to make moves this offseason if things don't go the right way. The Minnesota Timberwolves and Phoenix Suns. Minnesota might sweep the Suns. Is Kevin Durant going to be on the move? Is there going to be a third team that needs to make that happen? A team that can take on a big contract? Detroit Pistons. Michigan's very own Devin Booker. Could he become available? Would he want to come back home to Detroit? The Pistons have some flexibility with the cap space. They have some picks down the line, very down the line they can offer. They have a few young assets. Could they go after Devin Booker? It looks like they might get swept. The Los Angeles Lakers, I think the only thing that really comes out of the Lakers-Nuggets series, could D'Angelo Russell become available? Could the Pistons go sign D'Angelo Russell? I think that could be on the board. The Heat Celtics, not really too much coming there, but you could even look at maybe Tyler Hero. Will he become available? The Heat lose in the first round where they want to try to get out from that luxury tax? Could become available. The Cleveland Cavaliers and Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic, not too much. But the Cleveland Cavaliers, if they lose in the first round, will Donovan Mitchell become available? Maybe the Pistons could get involved in something like that. Would they be interested in him? The Milwaukee Bucks, Indiana Pacers series. If the Bucks lose in the first round, I think it's incredibly likely that we might start hearing rumors of Giannis, Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton, that entire team being blown up. That could happen. And the Pistons don't have enough to go after Giannis, but could they get a Chris Middleton? I think that could happen. That's another team that could blow it up. The Knicks and 76ers. The 76ers lose in the first round. Obviously, Tobias Harris, but maybe they want to give up some other pieces. Maybe there's some other players they're not interested in. If the Knicks lose in that first round, maybe do they want to move off Julius Randle? Could the Pistons be interested in Julius Randle? Like, every single one of these playoff series, if you look at it, could be potential openings for the Detroit Pistons to splash. And who knows if it actually becomes available? Who knows if these teams end up wanting to get out from that second apron? Maybe they're dumb enough to just say, who cares? We're just going to keep paying this much. I doubt it. Sounds like the same thing's happening in Golden State. Golden State wants to get underneath that second apron. If you don't know about the second apron, cap-wise, go read about it. It's a hell. You do not want to be in the second apron. You are basically have both hands and feet tied behind your back. You don't got no way to do anything once you get in that second apron. You do not want to be in there. You want to get out from there. Golden State's getting out from it. And I think quite a few teams are going to be, depending on who loses in the first round, will also be trying to get out of it. And the Pistons could splash. That could be finally what Weaver's plan has been for 4 years. He may finally get that. And it's not him. It'll be the president of basketball operations that comes in that gets that chance. Every single series, I think there's a potential opening. I'm really interested. Obviously, I'm enjoying the playoff basketball, like in and of itself. But from a Pistons perspective, I'm really interested. Honestly, the name I'm most interested in is Brandon Ingram. I honestly think the Pistons, I can very realistically see a future where the Pistons get Brandon Ingram this offseason. Like, I think that is pretty damn realistic. The other ones, I think you might have to do some hoops and hope for some things. Brandon Ingram, I really think that Brandon Ingram could be available for the Pistons. I would not be shocked if they traded for him. Like, I truly think that. But there's, like I said, multiple other names, multiple other teams that could be of use for the Detroit Pistons. So stay tuned. Let's see what happens in this first round. It could get really, really interesting. It could get really interesting for the Detroit Pistons. But let me know in the comment section down below, what team are you specifically watching for when it comes to teams that the Pistons could trade with that maybe want to blow it up, maybe have a player they have to give off of because of what their cap space looks like. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. When we come back, are we worried? Should Pistons fans be worried? Should the Pistons organization be worried about potential coaches getting interviewed and hired before they even get their president of basketball operations? We'll talk about that when we come back. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. The class exclusive Google built-in is always your updating assistant to call in for almost anything. Gone are the days of having to connect your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen information system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. The 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8 in expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together for build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multiplayer for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So today I was scrolling Twitter. I was bored, as I usually am. I scroll Twitter all the time. And I saw some news, which, by the way, let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have you guys been getting updates from like Shams and Woj? Like, I haven't been getting it sent to my phone, even though I got their notifications on. I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe it's something wrong with Twitter now that Elon has taken over. Maybe something going on there. But let me know if you guys are having the same problems, because kind of annoying. I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, I was scrolling Twitter and I saw some news that the Charlotte Hornets, it seems like that their finalists include Charles Lee for their head coaching position. They, Steve Clifford went up to the front office for all. I don't know if you guys remember that. But Steve Clifford is now a front office member. They no longer have a head coach. And apparently, it sounds like reportedly that two of their finalists are Charles Lee, who is a Milwaukee Bucks assistant coach, which also, if you guys remember last year, Charles Lee was also a finalist for the Detroit Pistons job. And if you have read a few articles this year from going all the way down to James, if you read some articles from, and it's not the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm sorry, I misspoke. He's the assistant coach for the Boston Celtics. But if you've read any Piston articles this year, you will know that apparently there's a lot of big disagreement in the front office over Charles Lee. A section of the front office wanted Charles Lee. Another section didn't. Did ownership really want Charles Lee? He was in the finalists for the job, and there was a decent section of the front office that really wanted Charles Lee to be the Pistons head coach. Obviously, we know Monty Williams ended up being the coach, and we know how the season went. So Charles Lee is one of the finalists for the Hornets job, and the other one is an extremely interesting name that I think, again, I don't know what any other word to use other than interesting, in JJ Redick. He is a finalist for the Charlotte Hornets job. He was also interviewed last season for the Toronto Raptors job. This is not the second straight offseason he's had multiple teams reach out for him. He has voiced that he really wants to get into coaching. I think that JJ Redick would be a very intriguing option for the Detroit Pistons. And I would look out, if the Pistons move on from Monty Williams, if they hire a president of basketball operations and they move on from Monty, I would not be shocked to hear JJ Redick's name at all brought up connected to the Pistons. Because I think teams are seeing through his podcast and through the Mind the Game podcast, all the things he does on ESPN, the network, whatever. how smart of a player he is, how smart of a coach he would be. I think the questions with JJ wouldn't be the X's of O's, definitely not his offensive schemes. All that stuff, I don't think that would be questions. The question with JJ could he command a locker room? Could he manage personalities and a locker room? Like, that's the question you have with a guy coming out, going from the NBA to as a player to a coach. Managing the locker room. Obviously, some players, do they have like scheme, awareness? Are they smart in that department? Like, I don't have any question about that with JJ, but it would just be about, can he command a locker room? But anyways, the point is, it's not just about JJ, even though I think he's a really interesting name that I think I would not be shocked to hear him linked to the Pistons if the Pistons did move on from Monty. Is that JJ Redick and Charles Lee are both finalists for the Hornets job. If one of them gets hired, I think those guys could be hot names in the market. Let's say Charles Lee or JJ Redick gets hired this week. The Pistons don't have a president of basketball operations, so they missed out on a guy that maybe could have been at the top of their list if they move on from Monty. Other coaches could be, Chris Quinn. I've heard is rumored to be getting interviewed by some teams. However, that's a down way to look at it. That's the negative way to look at it. That the Pistons waiting forever to sign their president of basketball operations may make them, if they do decide to move on from Monty, now they're choosing from a lesser crop of coaches. That is a negative way to look at it. A positive way to look at it is maybe, and this could go for the president of basketball operations and could go for the head coach. Maybe the Pistons waiting for teams like the Boston Celtics and Heat to go through, a team like the Cavs and Magic to go through, a team like the Bucks and Pacers, or the Clippers Mavericks. One, do their president of basketball operations become available at GM? We've heard them linked to the Celtics GM. We've heard them linked to the Orlando Magic GM. If they get eliminated, do they go and try to sign them? Is that what they're waiting for? Same thing, you could do that across all the playoffs. We've heard that they are interested in some of those guys. Could that be what's happening? And then if you take it to the head coaching route, it's the same thing. If let's say the Clippers and Mavericks, let's say the Clippers lose, Ty Lue gets fired or he asks out, could the Pistons try to go crazy for Ty Lue? I think that would be a little far-fetched, but could it happen? Maybe. The Pelicans get swept. Willie Green gets fired. Would they be interested in Willie Green? Maybe. That's a name that could become available. The Phoenix Suns and Timberwolves. Could they be interested in Frank Vogel? I would hope not. I'm going to say it again. I would hope not. Frank Vogel, no. But could he be someone they interview? Could be it. The Nuggets, Lakers, I don't think they're interested in anyone there. Darvin Ham, I don't think so. 76ers, Knicks, I don't think it has too much impact there. Bucks, Pacers, same thing. I don't think it has too much impact there. So there's a few teams, though, that maybe they're waiting on. Or I forgot to mention this coach. I'm sorry. The Cleveland Cavaliers Magic. If the Magic win that series, maybe JB Bickerstaff becomes available. They lose the first round again. Could JB Bickerstaff become available? Or could that be someone the Pistons are interested in? So it's really, it just depends how you want to look at it. Do you want to look at this as the Pistons are taking too long to get their president of basketball operations, which means they'll get started late on their offseason, not only when it comes to hiring a new head coach, but also getting involved in trades and recruiting and free agency and scouting for the draft. You could look at it like that. And I think that's legitimate that, not having someone at the head of the powers right now while the playoffs go on, like the closer you get to the offseason, officially starting for the whole season or for the whole team or league, I'm sorry. That could be concerning. I get that. But then also, are they waiting? Do they view some of these players, or not players, but coaches and executives that are in the playoffs? Do they view them at the top of their list? And is that what they're waiting for? Do they think there's something that could become available that they're interested in? That's a game you have to play. If that's the game, I should say, you're trying to play, it's a very dangerous one. It's a risky one because you could miss out on guys like maybe Charles Lee, who you're still interested in. You could miss in on a guy like JJ Redick if he's at the top, towards the top of your list. But you also, again, if you take that risk, maybe they are still there when you get your president of basketball operations. And other coaches got fired from playoff teams that you like. Now you have an even bigger crop of coaches to look through and interview and do a more detailed search compared to last year. I know I was very critical of the Detroit Pistons coaching search this past season. Very, very, very critical of it. And I do think the Pistons will move on from Monty Williams. I think they will. They should. And again, I think they will eventually. So Let me know how you guys are looking at it. Would you guys look at it as a negative that they're taking a minute and could potentially miss out on some guys? Or are you looking at it as more of a positive spin on it, that maybe guys that aren't available right now become available that they should be interested in, like a JP Bickerstaff or like I said, or maybe a Ty Lue or a Willie Green or a guy like that. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, an all-star weekend in Detroit, is that possible? We'll talk about that when we come back. Moms are a gift, so give her the best this Mother's Day. Get gifts as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash. Select from hundreds of expertly crafted briquettes to the best of tech to self-care essentials and more delivered right to her door. 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour. Convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. Pay her flowers with a gift card so she can celebrate any way she wants. Is she a bookworm? Try a bookstore gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get a gift card to her favorite coffee shop. You can't go wrong. And trust me, last year I used DoorDash for Mother's Day, sent my mom some flowers. She enjoyed them. And even on Valentine's Day, my wife was at work. I sent her some flowers and chocolates using DoorDash, and it made her day. You can do the same thing on DoorDash this year. Get all your Mother's Day gift all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour. Convenience, grocery, or retail order now. Order with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Again, use code LOCKEDONNBA with DoorDash today. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review or whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. We have a fun episode coming this week. We have 2 guests coming on. I think you guys will really enjoy it. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a fun one. Should be coming here, I think, Thursday. So stay tuned this week. It should be a fun one. We might have some other guests, but I know for sure we're going to have a fun one Thursday. So again, stay tuned for that. The NFL had the draft in Detroit this past weekend. I was there for the first day, first round. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys were at the draft, or you can let me know on Twitter. I thought it was an absolutely amazing experience on the first day. It was incredibly packed. When I tell you it was packed, it was insane. It felt like the entire state of Michigan was there. And as you know, if you're paying attention at all, Detroit broke all the records for most people at an NFL draft. I believe they had 700,000+ people at the draft. I think second place was like 6,000. I believe it was it might have been Minnesota. I forget who it was. But second place was like 6,000, and the next closest was like 300,000, I think. But Detroit broke all the records, and you're starting to see a lot of positive comments about Detroit coming nationally. So I'm happy that the draft being in Detroit with the NFL brought a lot of people to Detroit and allowed people to see how beautiful the city is, especially downtown. How beautiful Detroit is, and it's not what people paint outside Detroit. It's not what the trolling that gets said about Detroit. That's not the truth. And I'm happy that people got to see that. It's really cool seeing that. And one of the people, apparently, according to some reports, that got to see that is NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. Apparently, he was in Detroit during the NFL draft, and there's rumors that he was discussing the possibility of having an all-star game in Detroit in the future. Per Brad Galley, I saw this on Twitter. He is a sports director at WXYZ Detroit TV. He tweeted out, Detroit may finally be getting an NBA All-Star game. Pistons COO Richard Haddad told us NBA executives were in town this weekend for the NFL draft, and Adam Silver was in town a few months ago. So actually, I misspoke. Adam Silver was not in town this past weekend, but he was a few months ago concerning this. And NBA executives were also here during the weekend for the NFL draft. So I think the NBA having an all-star weekend in Detroit would be absolutely amazing. I think it would be loved. I think people would love downtown, the scene downtown, the clubs, all the restaurants, the scene, like the views. I think it would be absolutely amazing. And we saw this past weekend with the NFL draft Detroit can handle a big number. Like 700,000 people being down there. There was 300,000 plus the first day. The NFL draft started at like 7. We got there at like 5, and we had gotten updates to our phone saying, don't try to come into like the part that's shown on TV. I don't know if people who know this or not, but like on the NFL draft, the part that's on TV, it's just one section of like the NFL draft like section. Like the entire downtown scene was walled off. No driving around, no nothing. It was completely walled off, and all of it was like NBA or NFL draft themed. So just that part you saw on TV was nowhere close, even though outside of that, when they spanned out, you saw how big it was. But like I said, 300,000 plus people, it was crazy. It was insane. So we know Detroit can handle those type of numbers. It wouldn't be the same because it wouldn't be outdoors, but like it's not, we don't need to be worried about it getting crowded. It wouldn't be getting too crowded, and there's plenty of stuff to do downtown. And I think it would really help with, the Pistons maybe recruiting some players, showing players that Detroit, hey, it isn't as bad as people try to say outside the city. Like it's not some hideous crime-filled city that like it's a beautiful city, man. And for anyone who is downtown for the NFL draft knows, like if you came out of state for the NFL draft, you came from outside of Detroit, maybe northern part of Michigan, western part of Michigan for the NFL draft, first time downtown, people knew. Like it was amazing. And seeing all the national people talk about it, man, I really loved it. It seriously made me very happy to hear that. And I think you would hear the same if the NBA All-Star Weekend was here. So the only difference is it might be a little colder in February, so that's a little bit fair. But you can wear a jacket. People know what jackets are. But outside of that, as long as it's not snowing. Now, if it was snowing, then that would be just okay. I can get on board. That would be terrible. If it was snowing in February when the All-Star game was here, that would not be good. Okay, I get that. But outside of that, I think it would be absolutely amazing to have an All-Star game in Detroit. All-Star weekend, I think players would love it. I think the executive coaches, I think all of them would love it. And honestly would give Detroit a better, like I said, a better image. And maybe players that are outside Detroit that think negatively about Detroit wouldn't feel the same once they're in it. Maybe you could recruit them. Kay could try to recruit them when they're here. So who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I'm hoping to get All-Star weekend. That would be really dope. But let me know in the comment section down below if you were at the NFL draft this past weekend and how you felt about it. Was it fun? But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. Free to available on our podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out.